Morning, ladies and gentlemen. Dorothy here from the CCMA. You're very welcome to our Friday Ask the Expert webinar. Delighted to welcome Chris Paul, CEO of Avantcard, who is joining us from the UK today. So, Chris, we really appreciate your time in joining us for today's webinar. And as always, we're joined by Niamh from WSI, who's there when, fingers crossed, nothing goes wrong. But so far, so good. We should be fine. So Avantcard are a company that I've known for many years, based out of Carrick-on-Shannon, and last year were very worthy winners of our Customer Contact Centre of the Year media in the medium category. A phenomenal story, I think a phenomenal history, Chris, in terms of how the company has grown and developed over the years, and has had many challenging periods in that time. But I know in the last number of years it's really turned around, and it's a huge success story, obviously in Carrick, but in the credit card industry in Ireland. So we really appreciate you sharing your insights with us this morning. I know when we were preparing for today, we talked a lot of the focus will be on your plans for returning to the office, because I know from communication I'm receiving from member companies, that's where a lot of companies are and contact centres are at the moment. They're trying to plan that reopening and see the protocols that need to be put in place. So I know you're going to talk about that in a good bit of detail, which is great, because I think everybody can learn from each other and see what's best practice. So as always, we're recording the webinar. We want to make it as interactive as possible. Chris is absolutely happy to take any questions that you have. So please put them in the chat box, and I'll bring them to Chris's attention as they come through. So please do feel free to go ahead and ask some questions. So Chris, I'll hand over to you if that's okay. I'll let you introduce yourselves more formally, and thanks again.
Thanks, Dorothy, and good morning, everybody. So as Dorothy said, I'm the CEO of Avantcard. Some of you may have heard of Avantcard, some of you may be our customers. I'll spend a few minutes just explaining who we are, a little bit about the history of the business, and then I'll switch gears and spend a little bit more time talking about COVID-19 and what it's meant for us as a business and how we're trying to manage through it all. Not that we have all of the answers, but we do have a few things in terms of learnings, and I'm more than happy to share where we are at the moment with our plans. So a little bit about Avantcard, just a couple of slides. We're about 250 people, headquartered, as Dorothy said, in County Leitrim in Carrick-on-Shannon. We have a small and more recently opened satellite office in Dublin. About 230 of our people are in Carrick, 20 or so in Dublin. And we are a consumer finance company, originally providing credit cards and more recently loans, and in the market as Avantcard, and we've also done deals with Chill and more recently with En Post. So En Post Money, their cards and loans are provided by us. And in terms of the 250 people, about half are our contact centre, and the other half are a range of other functional areas: finance, HR, marketing, credit risk, all of the things you would typically expect us to do. And and as Dorothy said again, we're very proud to have won a number of awards, a couple of CCMA awards. We were the first financial services firm in Ireland to receive the Keep Well mark, and we've been a great place to work for a couple of years now. A little bit about our journey. Some of you may not know Avantcard, but a lot of you, I guess, may have heard of MBNA, and we are the former MBNA business. But as you'll see from this slide, we have been on a bit of a roller coaster ride over the years. Many changes in owner. At its peak, MBNA was about 1,100–1,200 people. At its lowest point, it was about 150, and as you know, we're now back to about 250. I talked about a few of the things on this slide, but most telling is last year, we were acquired by Bank Inter, who are one of Spain's biggest banking groups, and we've been under their ownership for just over a year now, and everything is going incredibly well. So, again, a really interesting journey for the business. The way I like to describe it is just, given where we are, where we've been, is we have the feel of an established startup, which at first glance makes no sense, but, we've been doing what we do for a long time, and we're good at it, in my view. But we definitely have the feel of a startup. Having only recently returned to the market our plans, you know, the way we're going about things. It's an exciting time to be at Avantcard. What makes us a very good contact center, and you know, how come we won these awards last year? Well, the things that make us a good contact center really are the same things that make us a good business. And you know, one of the key things I think that's behind this is how we define success in Avantcard, and we do it, you know, by, you know, the use of a balanced scorecard. So look, you know, we're in the business of making money, but you know, there are other things. You know, how we go about our business is important. You know, operation in control is important, particularly in financial services. You know, playing a role in the local community. You know, in Dublin, but to a greater extent, you know, in the northwest of Ireland. You know, making sure we're there at all times for our customers. You know, and that's been particularly true over the last several weeks with COVID-19 happening, and taking good care of our people. And you know, there are lots of proof points on this page. You know, there's a whole lot more beyond this. I'm not going to go through them all. We don't have the time. But you know, this is an illustrative example of, you know, how we run our business. You know, things we've done and achieved over, you know, only a 12-month period. And you know, what separates us, I think, from a lot of businesses also offering similar products to us. There's one thing on the page I will point to, and it'll be relevant in a short while when I move through and onto COVID-19, is the bottom right-hand corner. You know, we do in our contact center have a multi-skilled, you know, workforce. 83% of the people in, you know, business operations can do 2 or more roles, and you can see 64% can do 3 or more, and then there's still a bunch of people who can do 4 or more roles, and that gives us a huge amount of flexibility in deploying those resources. And we've had to really call on that flexibility over the last several weeks, as I said, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in a few moments. So that's really the first part. That's us, what we do, you know, who we are, where we've been, you know, how we run the business. But I guess people are probably more interested in, you know, how we've been, you know, working our way through COVID-19. So I'm going to move on and talk a little bit about that, how we've responded, you know, to the crisis, going into the crisis, and how we're now starting to plan for an emergence coming out the other end. So, you know, how have we dealt with this at a very high level? You know, this is an unprecedented challenge. You know, I've been through a number of crises in the past. Nothing like this. I don't think anybody has. And you know, there's no precedent. There's no rule book, playbook you can look back on. Well, the last time we had a crisis like this, here's what we did. You know, this all blew up pretty quickly. And you know, what we've had to do is mobilize effectively, respond promptly, and adapt quickly. We immediately stood up daily war rooms. We had a war room of our senior leadership team, and then, you know, we mobilized our business continuity management team, and they went into full on mode. You know, again, daily calls, daily meetings, you know, figuring out how we would react to everything as it emerged. And what I would say is, in the absence of precedent and rulebook and playbook, you know, it's largely been about balance and judgment calls. You know, how do you weigh up the interests of your employees, but they need to be there for your customers? As a financial services firm, how do you make sure you continue to operate in control when you're distracted with a whole bunch of other things? You know, how do we make sure that the company interests are protected, you know, and that, you know, the company continues to operate and will be around in the future? It's been tricky, and you know, we've had to make a lot of calls, you know, where we're just weighing things up and relying on the experience and the long tenure of our senior leadership team. And I think thus far we've judged it pretty well. And you know, at the end of it all, never losing sight of your core values. You know, COVID-19, you know, is traumatic, you know, for businesses, for society. But at the end of the day, it will come to an end. And you know, we need to make sure as we work our way through, we don't lose sight of our core values. You know, we don't step away from them. You know, ensuring the welfare of our colleagues. You know, being there when our customers need us, and they need us now more than ever. You know, protecting the long-term interests of the company, as I said, operating control, and finding a way. And it's been tricky, you know. We can't go out paint fences anymore. We can't fundraise in the way we have How do we find different ways to play a role in the community? So those have been the overarching challenges and how we've sort of tackled this. But just taking that to the next level down, some of the things we've had to do as a business over the last 12 weeks or so. At the end of the day, we closed both of our offices down in relatively short order. And we did that by standing up a virtual business across 250 locations. That's the way I look at it. I've worked for a lot of companies over the years, and I've been involved in a lot of office moves. And typically, you move, a bunch of people from one location to another location, from A to B, and 6 months, on average, in my experience, is what it takes in terms of planning, preparations, and execution. Sometimes it's gone well, sometimes even that planning preparation, hasn't worked, and we've run into some challenges. We, took a business that was based in 2 offices, and in 3 weeks, stood them up across 250 locations. Incredible. And that was down to, the flexibility, the resilience, the adaptability of our entire organization, all the people who understood the challenge we were facing and responded to that. And we did it in a way that we were able to maintain customer service throughout. It's not to say every day was a good day, and it's not to say that every day we hit our SLAs. We didn't. There were a few, days where we struggled, but we were always there. Customers may have had to wait for a bit longer, but we were always there throughout the crisis. The next point is the point I talked about before, is we redeployed our resources, and we continue to redeploy them. If you see there, we switched off all of our marketing and advertising activity pretty much immediately. We've tightened up, we've had to tighten up some of our lending policies, and given the challenges in the broader economy, well, that meant we didn't need some of the people doing what they were doing in the run-up to COVID-19. So we moved them around and we put them into different roles. Customers had different types of queries, they needed different types of support from us, and we were able to move resources around, and people were willing to do that. They had the skill, but they also had the will, and that was important. And going back to the point about being there for our customers, we provided customers with a range of support options. To be fair, most banks have done this. Most other financial institutions have offered things like payment holidays, fee waivers. We've certainly done our part. We're the only organisation in Ireland that's offered payment holidays on credit cards, for example. And that's been challenging for us. Things we haven't done in the past, we've had to do and set up in pretty short order. And we've been able to do that. And the last thing is just this point around citizenship. We haven't been able to do some of the things we'd like to do and we planned on doing. But what we did do was, in a matter of 72 hours, was put together and launch a program to support the Society of St. Vincent de Paul. And that was every time during the month of April, anybody made a contactless transaction, we were making a donation. And it added up to a meaningful sum of money, which we've already donated to a fantastic cause. So those were, that's just a quick, it sounds very simple and straightforward, but, that's just a quick summation of, some of the things we've done in a matter of weeks, really. The other thing I'd say has been critically important is communication. I think as a business, we do a good job of, communicating with our employees across a number of different channels. One thing I have learned from other crises is, in times of crises, some companies, almost, that communication sort of falls, by the wayside to an extent, and they forget to communicate. There are just other things, that are deemed to be more important. What I've learned is actually you need to go the other way. You need to over communicate to an extent, and we've done just that. Some of the examples there are there to the left of the page. We've introduced a whole range of new communication channels. We've leveraged technology, and we're communicating in ways we haven't done in the past. And we've adapted some of the ways we communicate. So I've always done probably every fortnight, face-to-face skip level lunches with a bunch of colleagues. And it's a great way for me to engage with people, understand how people are feeling, gives them a chance to ask me a bunch of questions. I haven't been able to do that, but what we did is stood up virtual skip levels using Microsoft Teams, and I'm doing 2 of those a week with smaller groups, but it's a great way for me to still stay plugged in and understand what's happening, how people are feeling, again, take questions, field those questions. And it's a really, really important aspect of what we're doing, and colleagues are very, very appreciative of this fact. And as a result of that, what we did do is we thought we were doing a pretty decent job. That's great. But at the end of the day, what's more important is how our colleagues feeling about our response to COVID-19. And we worked very closely with the Great Place to Work Institute. And we were able to put out a relatively simple pulse survey, asking colleagues how they felt about all of this. And there were a range of questions, and we got the detailed responses to those questions. But I've just pulled out a couple of stats here. We had an 80% response rate, which is good. 85% of colleagues feel that our approach has been good and has put our colleagues first. 80% of colleagues feel that we're pulling together as an organisation and working collaboratively. And those are important things. What I would say, it's this is at a point in time, and everything can be great today. It doesn't necessarily guarantee that everything's good tomorrow. And so we're not being complacent. We continue to focus on making sure we work our way through this and don't lose sight of all the good work that's been done thus far. But when we did this, which is a few weeks ago, it was reassuring to see that colleagues felt as though we were taking the right approach. And there's a whole bunch of additional responses, mostly good, but a couple of things we've already taken a look at, and we've just made some changes to how we were doing certain things. And hopefully, if we would do the survey again, and we may well do, we'll see another good set of results. So we've changed gears now, and initially the focus was on just going into the crisis and responding to the challenges we're facing. We've changed gears, and it's really now we're thinking about and planning for coming out of it all, and specifically returning to the office. And our planning, and I'll show you where we are in a moment, but our planning is well underway. We've taken a very deliberate approach to returning to the office. We're not winging it. We're not making it up ourselves and hoping for the best. We are, being guided very much, along the way. We're looking at, a whole bunch of, government, policies coming out on this, HSA guidelines, and making sure we're adhering to those. IBEC have been a valuable source of information in terms of additional checklists that make sure we don't inadvertently miss something which creates a problem for us. And obviously, internally, we're debating all of this as a senior leadership team, and we're absolutely plugged into our parent in Spain. Spain, have been facing, the same challenges we have. It's a different market. Some of the challenges are a little bit different, but the fundamentals are very much the same, and we're certainly leveraging, some of the, things they're doing, the approaches they've taken, what's worked and what's not worked. All of this is really dictating how we are planning for a return to office working. There is a very, very detailed, return to work safety protocol that's been published. It's a collaborative effort between the HSA and the HSE, and it's effectively a spec for all the measures you as a firm need to put in place prior to anybody returning to work, and the measures that need to remain in place, once you have people back in the workplace. And that has really been, what we have been working, and using as our reference point. And what we did is establish a cross-functional project team across the entire business to ensure the protocol is implemented in both of our offices before anybody goes back to work. What I would say is, this is a fully formed project. This is not something that can be done, in my view, side of desk. This requires a huge amount of effort. We have, by the time, we get people back to working, at the moment we're aiming to get people back, the first bunch of people back in, at the end of June. We'll have been working on this for probably 6, 7, maybe 8 weeks preparing. And I'll give you a sense of the size of or the magnitude of the exercise in a moment, but it is, a significant undertaking to prepare properly. Because the reality is, if you get it wrong, the consequences are severe. Not only the well-being of your workforce, reputational damage. The government are, I've already said they will be inspecting, workplaces, and they just ramped up the number of inspectors that will be out there visiting sites to make sure protocols are being adhered to. So it's a serious undertaking, and we've not taken it lightly. There's checklists, there's 7 checklists which cover a range of different things. There's a policy statement which we've issued to all of our colleagues, that sets out our commitment to a range of things and how serious we're taking this. And then just to give you a sense of the work involved, those 7 checklists come to, a total of 217 different tasks. That's 217 tasks. Not every one is necessarily applicable to every business, but if it's not applicable, you need to actually do the work to decide it's not applicable or it is applicable. And it's everything from cleaning protocols to the amount of work that needs to be done, planning and preparing for a physical return to the office, physical distancing, how we deal with suspected cases. It's a big, big piece of work that is consuming a significant amount of our time. And it will be the same for any business who is planning, whether it's sooner or whether it's later, to bring their workforce back. The key points, in terms of all of this and what it means for us in Avantcard, and I think for a lot of other businesses, with social distancing protocols as they are, we can probably get 30% of our people back into the office. If it reduces from 2 meters to 1.5 meters or 1.5 meters to 1 meter, we can get more people back, but we're not going to rush it. So probably in July, we'll bring back 50 odd people into our Carrick site, and maybe 10, 12 into Dublin, and we'll stop there. Even if the physical distance requirements change, we'll probably not go immediately to bringing more people back until we're sure everything is operating as it should. We'll continue with remote working for a period of time, and our language has been very, very specifically chosen. We're talking about the foreseeable future, because right now I don't have a clear view of, when we'll be bringing more people back into the office. Personally, I'm not seeing it as likely to happen before the summer, and it could well continue through the remainder of the year. We'll have to see. So what we're doing is developing, and we're just about finalising now, a detailed COVID-19 working from home policy. So we have people working from home; they will continue to work from home. It's not going to be short term, so therefore we're giving further thought to, do they have the tools, the environment to be able to work from home for a longer period of time? And there's probably a few things we're going to be doing over the coming weeks with those colleagues who won't be returning to work anytime soon. And finally, just to leave you with one sort of parting thought. This is a quote I use a lot, but it's become particularly relevant with everything that's going on. The role I have, the role in my view of any leader, is very simple. We do 2 things: define reality and then give hope. Whether it's setting out what looks like an ambitious plan for the business, which looks daunting, and people are questioning how you're going to possibly achieve that. Here's how we're going to do it, giving that hope. What we've done is applied exactly the same in all of this. Being honest with people about what COVID-19 means for us as a business, what it means and the challenge it's going to pose for us, but then give hope. We will come out of this, and if we come out of it, intact, if we're smart, we'll learn from it. Whether it's more flexible working arrangements in the future, or some opportunities that have presented themselves that weren't necessarily there before COVID-19, there is hope. and we're continuing to sort of reinforce that with our colleagues. And as I say, this quote is probably more pertinent now than it's ever been. It's one I constantly come back to. So I hope that's been useful. Dorothy.
Great. Yeah, no, absolutely. Thanks so much, Chris. Kick off the first question. How are you deciding who comes back to the office? How are you selecting people coming back to the office?
We're selecting them based on a couple of criteria. Look, we have pretty much our entire workforce set up working from home at the moment. Some people I would say are back to effectively 100% productivity levels. Some people not so much. They have broadband challenges. Maybe their home environment isn't really conducive to working, so they're managing, but it's not great. So we're bringing the people back whose roles have been more severely impacted from working from home, who can do their job more effectively in the office. And as I say, we're bringing people back who are just struggling with infrastructure, and that's the other driver behind this. It's less of an issue in Dublin, more of an issue in the Northwest, where people are more rural in some cases. But what we are doing, and I think it's a really important point, is there are individual conversations happening with every person who we've identified as coming back to the office in that initial group, 50 odd people. It's not 70 as we originally thought. It's probably going to be a smaller number. Individual conversations, because we need to match those, and weigh up those company, considerations with people's personal circumstances. Some people are desperate to come back to the office. Other people have got challenges, particularly around childcare, and so we're having those individual conversations with colleagues just to make sure we understand people's personal circumstances first.
Question from Eugene. Hi, Chris. We use a lot of side-by-side training for new starters, and we'll have some temps starting later in the summer. Have you had any experience of how your teams have adapted to that challenge? So the challenge of training and obviously bringing in new starters.
Yeah, we've had no new starters, throughout all of this. We've had no leavers and no new starters. So we haven't had to deal with that specific challenge. What I would say though is, we've made many changes, over the last several weeks to how we were doing things, and we've had to train our workforce. There's had to be education in terms of changes to the way we were doing certain things, and the way we're now doing things. What we've done is just leverage technology, and things like Teams, has been really good in terms of being able to do that training, that education, with people sat at home, and it's worked pretty well so far, but we haven't had to deal, a virtue of not hiring at the moment, and nobody really moving jobs, as we haven't had to deal with that particular issue. But technology is there, and technology can help you, overcome a lot of things we found.
And Chris, what's the reaction been of people who you're now saying, look, you can come back into the office and we'll be looking for you to come back the end of June? So how have they taken that news? I know you're saying some have challenges with technology or broadband, so they're probably happy to come back, that they can be more productive. But in general, the reaction? The
reaction's been very positive. We've had all of those conversations now. Nobody has, refused to come back. There are a couple of people we're talking to just about their personal circumstances. And they at the end of it, we may decide that they don't come back in the short term. But that is literally one or two. People are very supportive. I think that we've given them the necessary assurances. We've explained through many forums, town halls, team sessions, the planning, the preparation, the robustness of everything we're doing to get ready, that their well-being is paramount in all of this. And if we're not ready, we will, as I say, we'll delay. So I think people are reassured. Some people, are a little bit nervous. I get that. Some people are desperate to get back. I would love to get back to the office. I'll probably be the last person back, just because I'm back in the UK, and there are some other considerations. I miss the whole office dynamic. For me, it's a big part of what I do, and why I spend my time during the week in Ireland. But generally speaking, people, those that are coming back, are sufficiently assured and are comfortable doing so.
Great. A question from Dennis. How do you manage PCI compliance in the working from home arena?
Don't know. That's not a question I can answer, unfortunately. It's something I would have to ask somebody else, and there's nobody else sort of sitting with me or near me at the moment. So there's always one question that catches me out, and that's that particular one. So sorry, Dennis.
Don't worry, but we probably, if Dennis wants, we can get somebody to come back to him on that. Is that okay?
Come back to you on that.
Yeah, perfect. And then can I go back just to what you were talking about earlier, this idea of your teams are multi-skilled and that you made that strategic decision. I presume there's obviously a cost to that, but you've obviously got the returns on that now given COVID-19. But what was the original thinking behind that, Chris? Why were you?
I've talked about it in real terms. So, I said, when all this kind of blew up, we stopped advertising, we stopped marketing, we tightened up our credit policies, but I think obvious reasons. Well, we normally, we process a certain number of applications every day for credit cards and for loans. That volume of applications dropped significantly. So you've got a whole bunch of people there, with nothing to do. On the other hand, we started offering payment holidays, and we were getting lots of calls initially from customers inquiring about that. And, we had to deal with those calls. We had to process the requests we were receiving. So we just moved some bunch of, people around. And again, things of, volumes into our call center, just general inquiries, spiked initially. Lots of calls about disputes, my flight's been cancelled, I want my money back, and so, it's ebbed and flowed quite a lot in terms of supply and demand across different parts of the contact center. And what we've done is really moved our people around to follow the flow. And fortunately, and look, our people have been terrific. They've been more than willing to do that. They've not griped, and they've done that. And even at the, even now, we're still making some adjustments because, things are evolving and changing, not necessarily on a daily basis, but on a pretty frequent basis.
And last question then, Chris, because I'm conscious of time, we've gone a tiny bit over. In terms of working from home longer term, do you see that as something that potentially will be there? In earlier calls we've had and webinars we've had, a couple of members have made the comment that they think people, productivity has increased. And one of the reasons is, people are hoping it'll prove the business case from working from home as that being an option. Have you seen that happen? Have you seen your productivity? I know it's different circumstances, you have different challenges, but do you think working from home may be an option in the future?
I've been asked this question a lot, by a whole bunch of colleagues within Avantcard. And I know there's different companies that have been saying different things, Facebook, Google, Twitter, and all others. I don't see any of our workforce in the future, working from home full time. I've been very clear about that. I'm not sure that's right for us. I think there are some roles which, will require people to be in the office full time. The productivity, drops if they're working from home. But, again, one of the things we're debating at the moment is, does the new norm look like the old norm? Eventually, when we get back to, some semblance of normality, I think we'll have learned a lot, and it would be foolish and plain dumb to ignore all of that. So what I do think we'll end up with, Dorothy, is more flexible working arrangements. So, do we need all the people in the office all the time? No, I don't think we will in the future. But we have to think carefully about this in terms of which roles can we provide additional flexibility to and which ones not. And we need to be as fair and as transparent and as consistent as we can. And so we're going to think about it carefully before we announce anything. But I think we will ultimately learn from this, and I think we will go back to a new norm, but I don't see it being people working at home full time.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your honesty and your frankness and for sharing those very valuable insights, Chris. Really appreciate it. I'm getting lots of thanks from the people on the webinar. Just to say, we'll have a version of our copy of your presentation available on the members area later today, and the recording from the webinar. So thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And I forgot to do a shout out to Sherry. I forgot to mention that you had also won the Advisor of the Year last year. So a good year. And in that context, we hope to be launching our 2020 awards in the next week or two. We're still planning on a ceremony on the 14th of November in some format or other, subject to government guidelines at the time, but the Clayton is booked and we're all full steam ahead. So we do absolutely hope that companies like yourselves will be going again for victory, and that we'll see you there. And then just housekeeping things to mention. And it's actually interesting in the context of the quote being up on the screen there. Our next community chat webinar on Tuesday is with Fiona Buckley, and the title is Authentic Leadership to Create True Followership. So hopefully that'll be of interest to people on this morning's webinar, and all the details are up on the website. Go look at that. And then just one last reminder about our survey, which is out with a lot of our member companies at the moment. And thank you so much for so many people in participating. Just want to encourage you, if you haven't already completed it, to do that today if possible. And if you haven't already contacted me to say you'd like to complete it, please do that today as well. And we know that it's going to provide very valuable data in terms of returning to work, protocols, policies, and the usual benchmarking data. So thanks to everybody. Hope everybody has a lovely and safe weekend. And Chris, we hope to see you soon. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks, Niamh. Bye-bye.
Bye.